to travel to Madeira, Portugal. It's a breathtaking island in the Atlantic, and my wife and I took a tour bus up this long, narrow, winding roads to the top of what are some of Europe's highest cliffs. Perched like eagles, we overlooked the vast ocean, the stunning landscape, and the tiny city far below. We felt small and insignificant against that vast sea, the towering mountains, and the endless, beautiful blue horizon. We could sense that this was an incredibly special place to be. As a couple, we were awestruck. We felt privileged yet humbled by God's glorious creation. Somehow words alone cannot describe the experience. But I'm sure that you've all had mountaintop experiences, times when you felt God's overwhelming presence. When we have these mountaintop experiences, these encounters with the divine, we are humbled, for they are awe-inspiring and deeply gratifying. And I'm sure that's how the disciples, Peter, John, and James felt on that day they traveled up the mountain to be with Jesus, to pray. The story begins with the three disciples struggling to stay awake, resting after a weary climb up the mountain. Suddenly, the disciples are fully awake, and they witness Jesus speaking with Moses and Elijah about his coming departure. He would bring about the ushering of a new Exodus, which would take place in Jerusalem. Overcome with emotion, Peter exclaims, "Master, let us build 3 tents, one for you, one for Moses, and one for Elijah." Something they would do in symbolic recapitulation of the Feast of Tabernacles. Luke reiterates that Peter, so stupefied, did not know what he was saying. In other words, they did not fully understand the gravity of what it was that had been transpiring at the moment. While at prayer, Jesus' face had changed in appearance, and his clothing became dazzling white, and the other two appeared in glory. At that moment, they were seeing Jesus for who he was in a whole new light. And I'm sure the disciples' hearts were set ablaze. They would never again be the same. May I suggest, not only Jesus, but they had been transfigured by the experience. And if that's not enough, comes that voice, that resounding, familiar voice, echoing again from the overshadowing cloud, a manifestation of God the Father's transcendence. The message this time, this is my chosen Son. Listen to him. The story ends as they fell silent at that time and did not tell anyone what they had seen. A mountaintop experience that you tell no one about? You must ask why. They did not believe what they had seen? Was it because it was way too mystical and strange? Did the experience leave them dumbfounded and speechless? Were they afraid to tell others, thinking that they were crazy or overly religious or something? Or was it they really did not have the ability to understand the whole experience at that time and grasp its full significance? I suggest it's probably a little of all of the above. Jesus had been telling them along the road that he must go to Jerusalem, not in triumph, but to be judged, to take his cross, suffer, and die a cruel death. The disciples would not accept this prediction. The new Exodus, mentioned in Luke's gospel, alludes to the freeing of captives, highly necessary in the salvation of souls, which takes place because Jesus' willingness to undergo his brutal passion. It is there that he climbs the mountain of Calvary. It is only after the glorious events of resurrection and ascension that the disciples finally come to terms with who Jesus really is. Think about it. It truly is a mystery how often God works in our lives, giving us little subtle signs, revealing himself. Often we're not fully awake to even notice him. We must ask ourselves, what are the changes that we might make in our lives to be more consciously aware of God, his abiding love, and the blessings that he gives us? You see, we have an invitation this Lent to spend more time with the Lord, to answer that call, to hear that voice once again, to follow and become transformed disciples like Peter, John, and James. We all need a little more work in our lives. And I ask this to really conquer those little mountains that prevent us from praying. Praying so that we too can be transfigured to be more like Jesus. Amen.